the rise of a new massive class, the useless class. Just as the Industrial Revolution created the urban working class, so the new revolution will create the useless class. People who are not just unemployed, but unemployable.
I'm convinced that we will destroy, unfortunately, a lot of employment.
You've written extensively on the topic that you've asked me to speak to, mastering the fourth industrial revolution.
It accelerates the process of digitalization and automatization. It legitimizes the deployment of mass surveillance.
The nature of this CBDC, what is it actually going to look like? They never talk about that.
CBDC. If that happens, we're done.
It's the year 2050. You own nothing, eat bugs, and rely on central bank digital currency controlled by governments to sustain yourself, but are severely limited in what you can use those funds for. If state governors don't pull their heads out of their asses, central bank digital currency might be upon us very soon. There is slimy, secret, corrupt, cryptic, and subtle legislation racing through state legislatures, beginning with South Dakota. And that legislation will facilitate a WEF UN Agenda 2030 CBDC rather than blocking it. This backdoor legislation attempts to preemptively ban Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies as decentralized options to escape from this looming menace. Shit just got real, and the powers that be want you bagged and tagged. As we can see here in an early tweet from Mark Moss this morning, cryptic and subtle legislation is racing through red states that will better facilitate CBDCs and ban, quote unquote, Bitcoin as an option to escape. This is super important, so if Mark Moss says it's super important, we should probably pay attention. And as Robert Breedlove says here, the question, what is money, is quickly becoming the defining question of our time. Better call Satoshi. Let's dive into it. All right, here we go. This is the article Moss and Breedlove referenced from The Blaze. Now again, shady legislation is creeping across the country with what appears to be malicious intent. The Uniform Commercial Code is a set of standards to facilitate interstate sales and commercial transactions such that all definitions pertaining to such commerce are uniform and clearly understood. The UCC has been adopted in every state's legal code and is amended from time to time. Typically, the amendments are non-controversial, although the subject matter is very dense and complex to people not involved in monetary policy and finance. Trying to create a bureaucratic nightmare, just look at the tax code. Here we go. The ULC suddenly pushed a slew of amendments in bills 100 to 200 pages long, which is very unusual for state legislatures without any legislative oversight. These bills are sailing through committees and even some full chambers without any opposition. But in South Dakota, the state targeted first because it is home to the big banks. Members of the South Dakota House Freedom Caucus flagged a very disturbing provision about the changes to the most important definition of all, the definition of money itself. Here we go, arbitrarily changing the rules again. Specifically, HB 1193 under Section 124 states the following: money means a medium of exchange that is currently authorized or adopted by a domestic or foreign government. Now, under that passage right there, that would respect Bitcoin, but they were savvy. The term includes a monetary unit of account established by an intergovernmental organization or by agreement between two or more countries. The term does not include an electronic record that is a medium of exchange recorded and transferable in a system that existed and operated for the medium of exchange before the medium of exchange was authorized or adopted by the government. Emphasis right there. Of course, nobody probably read this provision, and it wound up sailing through the state house before it was flagged by members outside the Judiciary Committee. It passed the House 49-17 and the Senate 24-9. In plain English, it appears to open the door for states to preemptively accept any new currency adopted by governments, which in the era we live in is designed for CBDC slavery tokens. Wow, the state big daddy government, I never thought I would see the desire and relentless push towards tyranny in America, and we have these past 3 years. However, in the ultimate double whammy, it would exclude Bitcoin from the definition of money because it was in existence, quote unquote, before this future hypothetical medium of exchange is adopted. Complete rigging of the rules in real time. This is hilarious. We are in Animal Farm or Hogwarts under Dolores umbrage. So the amendment presupposes an electronic medium of exchange for legal tender, but excludes those forms already in existence, presumably to pave the road for the ultimate form of digital currency officials are planning for. Yeah, we know it won't hold up in an open market of competition, so we have to coerce you by the boot of the state to use our worthless slave technology. How about you go yourselves? This concern was first flagged by the sharp eyes of South Dakota State Representatives Scott Odenbach and John Hansen, who raised concerns during the House Judiciary Committee hearing last month. Odenbach expressed concern that the new definition of money, quote, might be paving the way for central bank currency. However, we need to speculate about the definition. In the video PowerPoint presentation on the amendment, Stephen Weiss of the Uniform Law Commission, beginning at 46 minutes 45 seconds, explains that the provision was specifically inserted in response to the governments of the Central African Republic and El Salvador adopting Bitcoin as money. They felt that under the current definition, Bitcoin would totally be accepted, as we saw in that first sentence, and therefore it was in need of amending. He asserted that under the new definition, quote, Bitcoin will not be money, but central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, could be money. And here is the slide from Weiss's presentation. As you can see, the ULC clearly has an agenda to ban Bitcoin from being used as a decentralized option for freedom, while officials create a CBDC as depicted in slide 2. Now, it's true that under existing UCC rules, there is nothing precluding a CBDC, but we need amendments from states to preemptively block it. Instead, this amendment implicitly anticipates joining a CBDC while strategically and explicitly banning decentralized cryptocurrencies that can't be used to control a population as an escape hatch for those of us who don't want the government tracking and controlling every aspect of our lives. As Weiss said in the presentation, the revisions to Article 1 are very clear now that Bitcoin will not be money. Go yourself, because even though the definition provides for electronic money, it says that an asset that is adopted by a government as its medium of exchange will not qualify as money. If the electronic asset, such as Bitcoin, existed before it was adopted by the state, go yourself. So Bitcoin, of course, exists today. It existed before El Salvador adopted it as its currency, so it will never be money for UCC purposes. The same for other kinds of cryptocurrencies. So there you have it. Officials clearly mean to pave the way for CBDCs while explicitly barring all competition. So the question, will Governor Christie Name veto the bill? That is the million-dollar question. She has until Thursday to veto the legislation. Otherwise, it will automatically become law. Meanwhile, the ULC has bills in almost half the states with similar provisions. Here is the bill list from the ULC, which is lobbying assiduously to get them passed. Here we go. Arizona, California, Colorado, DC, Hawaii, Indiana, Kentucky, Maine, Massachusetts, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, New Hampshire, New Mexico, North Dakota, Oklahoma, Rhode Island, South Dakota, Tennessee, Washington, and West Virginia. Bills that contain this redefinition of money already passed the Kentucky Senate, the Montana Senate, the Indiana Senate, and the North Dakota House. They have breezed through the committees in every state they have been introduced. If this is not stopped, it could be the death of our freedom. Every governor and legislator needs to be informed about these UCC changes and to oppose them until this provision is changed. Moreover, they need to go on a fence and pass legislation explicitly promoting decentralization and prohibiting the implementation of a CBDC. Like Tom Emmer has proposed a ban on CBDCs in the United States, and for good reason. Probably never thought the U.S. would look to implement CCP surveillance technology on its own citizens. Oh, wait.
Surveillance was the mechanism used to discuss a conversation that was affecting all of us, which is that our governments, even in what we like to believe are free and open societies, are becoming increasingly comfortable making decisions without involving the democratic process, right? We weren't asked if we wanted to vote in favor of mass surveillance, right? They simply did it, right? We weren't asked. The courts weren't even allowed to consider if these systems were constitutional.
Time is of the essence. During a Treasury Select Committee hearing this week, Sir John Cunliffe, a deputy governor of the Bank of England, was asked to rank the likelihood of a digital pound being instituted in the UK on a scale of 1 to 10. He answered it's at least a 7 and maybe higher. Members of Parliament felt he wasn't enthusiastic enough. They are coming for our bodies, our food, our energy, our land, and our currency. They want total control. Governors should be working overtime to stop this rather than being complicit in the demise of liberty. liberty. Back when Andrew Jackson warned about a central bank, there was no such thing as a digital currency or the technology to cut off your ability to participate in human life. There was also no such thing as ESG or wokeness. The amalgamation of these factors put together makes CBDC the greatest threat to our life and liberty, especially when tethered to the biomedical surveillance state that was cemented during the regime. Kristi Noem and other governors must therefore echo the sentiment of President Jackson by a factor of 100. Unless the corrupting monster should be shraven with its ill-gotten power, my veto will meet it frankly and fearlessly. What we face today puts the British taxation without representation, the sugar, tea, stamp acts to shame, with monetary, fiscal, and legislative directives coming from an unelected group of globalist parasites. It's time to nut up and stand up for freedom, and an excellent first step is adopting freedom money the New World disorder can't steal, seize, silence, or control. Check out this video for the counter to all this in the states adopting and protecting Bitcoin. And check out this video to see how the separation of Bitcoin from crypto is picking up. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share us, and keep tuning in for the signal at Simply Bitcoin. The Bitcoin Standard is the defense and detour to Agenda 2030 and the Great Reset's road to serfdom become ungovernable. Until next time, peace.
They see the rise of a new massive class, the useless class. Just as
makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears.
So you are not just unemployed, but unemployable.
I'm convinced that we will destroy, unfortunately, a lot of
people run it to the people who own it. That unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.